Hi, everybody. Dr. Lawrence here. This is my new course on the nonfiction book proposal. And the purpose of this video is to basically just say hi and welcome to the course and give you an overview of what we're going to be doing and why I created this course and all the fun things we're going to get into. So I'm an associate professor of writing at the University of Wisconsin Superior, and I'm getting into my mid-career now, and I've written a couple of books. I've written a textbook that's going into its second edition now. It's digital writing for Broadview Press, kind of a guidebook for a rhetorical approach to social media and writing for the web. And I've also written a nonfiction trade book, a sort of mass market book, which is a history of disinformation going from the ancient Greeks and before, and doing this kind of rhetorical, technological history of disinformation, bringing us to the present day. And then I've sort of said, well, hey, that's interesting. I've kind of figured out the process for how to pitch a nonfiction book, and wouldn't it be fun to do a class? Excuse me. Wouldn't it be fun to do a class where I help students also navigate that process of preparing a nonfiction book proposal and learning how that all sort of works? And that is the very purpose of this class. So what we're going to be doing is I'll walk you through all these steps of, how do you formulate an idea and identify an area that you're something of an expert in, and then how do you kind of flesh out that document, and what is a nonfiction book proposal, and how does this all work. So I hope you'll be excited about the course. And I'm a little bit sick, so this kind of like monotone, suppressed cadence of my speech is not in alignment with the level of excitement that I have about this course. I think it's a really exciting class. It's a great opportunity, and I wish I could have taken a class like this when I was a bit younger, so that I could figure out this, what, at face value is kind of a mysterious process of like, how do you actually get a book published. And so I'll actually show you examples of my book proposals. Those will be in Canvas, and talk through the actual like things that happened that led me to publishing books. And of course, everyone's process is going to be different. Everyone's journey as a writer is different, but at least you can sort of take some of this and adapt it for your own situations and your own interests, and kind of see where you fit in with this information. And so that's maybe part one here, is the nonfiction book proposal. Let's just talk about that. Nonfiction and fiction publishing have different avenues, slightly different processes. If you want to write a novel, you kind of just have to write the novel. There's really no way around it. You got to get that book out there. You have to get all the words drafted. You've got to make it, real punchy, and finish the manuscript. It's got to be a complete, beautiful, fantastic piece of writing before you pitch it to agents, before the agent pitches it to an editor, all of that, right? You have to have a completed book. Nonfiction is quite different in the sense where you generally acquire a book contract through this document of the book proposal. The book proposal is a document that basically says, hey, I want to write a book. I know something about this subject. I think there would be a really good book on this topic. Here's an outline. Here's a summary of the book. Here is a little bit of information about me. Here's how I would market it. Here are the sources I'm going to use. And here's a sample chapter, or sometimes 2 or 3 sample chapters, depending on the agent or editor's guidelines. So that's like you can see, that's a really different process. For fiction, if you want to publish a fiction book and you want to go the agent route, working with a literary agent, all of that, you're typically going to finish that book first and then start pitching it to presses directly, or to agents, to acquisitions editors, that whole thing. That's not my expertise, right? I mean, I have written quite a few novels and like self-publish them, and I like writing fiction, but my forte is really in nonfiction, and thus this class here. Um, the books that I've published, I've worked with the textbook. I was pitching that directly to an acquisitions editor who worked at a publisher. With my second book, I I found a tweet actually from a new editor. They're working at a new imprint also, which specialized in nonfiction. An imprint is kind of like a sub company. You know, like you have these big publishing, they're like huge corporate entities now. They've kind of like consolidated into four, maybe really big publishers. But in that big corporate structure, they'll develop imprints, which are kind of like sub companies that maybe specialize in different genres. So for my second book, this larger publisher was trying to start a North American imprint, and they hired a new acquisitions editor. And then this acquisitions editor tweeted something like, "Hey, I'm really looking for manuscripts about topics on social change and histories and that sort of thing." And so I saw that tweet, and then submitted something to them, and then they were interested in the proposal and all that sort of thing. Just as I know, I realize I'm going on a little tangent here, but just to realize that there's not always like a perfectly defined process in what leads to publication. There can be elements, excuse me, there can be elements of just like getting into contact. And then how did I find that tweet? I was actually searching. I know it's X now, but I'm getting old, so I still call it Twitter, but it's X. Short form. There's Blue Sky. There are lots of these different platforms where writers and publishers communicate with each other. I was using a search feature where I was searching specifically for the hashtag MSWL tweet, manuscript wish list, and actively looking for acquisitions editors who were accepting manuscripts. So that's how I found that publication process for my second book. Now I'm working on a new book now. It's about the origins of technology, and I started working with a literary agency, but really interestingly, that actually hasn't resulted in a publication yet. It's been this kind of long process of working with the agent, and the agent is pitching to publishers on my behalf, and it's a very long process so far. It isn't always. Some people who work with an agent, they find a publisher right away, and it's really quick. Some writers who work with agents, it takes a little bit longer. That's the boat I'm in right now. Like we're going on a long time frame here. To the point where I'm starting to think about, well, maybe I should just pitch this myself to academic presses. It's a cool book about the origins of technology, all of that. But, well, I need to be more respectful of your time here. So, the nonfiction publishing process starts with this document of the book proposal. And my goal is to have you get something like a completed nonfiction book proposal finished by the end of this class. It's a big ask. I mean, we're going to have to put in quite a bit of time to do this. But by breaking it down into the discrete sections, I think it's doable. Some of you will probably get farther along than others, but I think everyone, if we stay focused over this course, I think we'll all end up with a product. Through this process, we will end up with a product that looks quite a bit like a nonfiction book proposal that you could hopefully pitch to agents or editors, which we'll talk about at the very end of the class more, the actual process of pursuing publication if that's something you want to do. But don't want to put the cart before the horse and all of that. We have to start with like the really fundamental questions of what are you even going to write about, and we'll cover that in other videos. There'll be some more videos. So all of this is just to say hi. I'm Dr. Lawrence. and I write books, and I want to help you write books too. And it's a challenging process, and it's a lot of fun also. And I need more coffee. We all do. And if there's any questions along the way, that's why I'm here. This is an upper level, intensive kind of workshop class where we're really gonna try to write a book proposal. So put your writer's hat on, and we'll start thinking about how do we break down this document. Uh, and remember to look at examples. I'm going to post nonfiction book proposal examples. It's a genre, yeah? The nonfiction book proposal is a genre. It's a specific type of proposal, and it is argumentative. You have to make a really good case that, hi, I know something about a subject. I'm qualified to write about this subject. Here's a hook. Here's why this book stands out. Here's why it's different from other books. We're going to have to do some research, right? Say you want to write a book about sustainable farming. You grew up on a farm, you know a lot about farming. Maybe someone's already covered that topic, so you got to think about a little bit different angle. Maybe it's a narrative, memoir about your struggles on a small sustainable farm that was fighting against all kinds of pressures and economic change, and then it starts to look like, oh, maybe that's unique. I don't know. That's not my area of expertise, but just for some examples, we're gonna have to do some research, have to look at comparable titles. What have other people published? Is there even a market for that? Those are like questions that don't necessarily have the answers to. There's big complex factors involved in writing and publishing. And to wrap this up, what I can do is help you think through a lot of these problems, help you understand the conventions of the genre of the book proposal so that you can write a really effective book proposal that, based on my templates, which have been successful. And I can help you think through some of those like process and developmental parts of this in terms of actually getting something like a sample chapter ready to submit to folks with your, included in the book proposal. So nice to see you all. Nice to meet you all. Stay tuned, stay focused, and we'll get a lot of work done. All right. Take care.